Hi everyone. I think we're all here. Is everyone accounted for and present? All of our lovely speakers? Give me a wave. Yep.
Hello.
Okay, perfect. Good evening everyone. It's so great to have you back with us for our second The Beauty Triangle webinar. Hope that you're all safe and well and surviving in these very strange times. My name's Francesca White and I'm the founder and curator of The Beauty Triangle. A quick note before we start. I know there's always a lot of anxiety around this, but you're not on camera and we cannot hear you. People are often very worried that they've left their microphone on or their camera switched on, but rest assured you are muted and invisible. However, we will have some time at the very end for some audience Q&As. So if anything occurs to you whilst we're speaking, just type your question in the little Q&A box at the bottom of your screen and we'll do our best to answer it for you. So a little bit of background for anyone who's new to the Beauty Triangle. We started about a year ago, very much as a way of educating and empowering our audiences on their health and well-being, but also to get people talking and to really bridge the disconnect between consumers and practitioners. So prior to lockdown, we were hosting monthly events in London where we would always discuss a different topic with a rotating panel of practitioners, always 3 speakers, hence we refer to them as our Beauty Triangle. So in the spirit of togetherness and all staying connected, I suppose these these webinars are our way of helping people stay informed and inspired about their well-being. And best of all, you can do it in your pajamas with a big gin and tonic and no one will even notice. But tonight we are joined by an amazing panel of practitioners, many of whom I'm sure you know, including lifestyle coach Louise Parker, aesthetic doctor Dr. Selena Langdon, and traditional Chinese medicine practitioner Katie Brindle. So as lockdown slowly starts to lessen and we can start to glimmer a little bit of real life on the horizon, these are the ladies who are going to tell us all how we can emerge from emergency safely and sustainably. Of course.
We will try. We will try.
We will all try. But yeah, if you're anything like me, maybe you've seen lockdown as an opportunity to drink a lot of wine and bake and sit on the sofa and watch a lot of Netflix, which is totally valid behaviour for a pandemic. But I don't think any of us can be alone in thinking what happens when normal life resumes. So Louise is going to be sharing a few ways we can sort of switch up our fitness regimes and eat more mindfully. Selena is going to show us some ways to sort of supercharge our skin and our bodies in preparation for summer. And Katie is going to show us some very simple techniques that can bring us sort of self-esteem, a self-esteem boost, but also a boost to our immunity. So I'm now going to hand over to our lovely practitioners and they're going to say a quick hello and then we're going to get started. So Louise, why don't you start?
Just with an intro or a hello,
yes,
sorry.
Just a quick hello and who you are and what it is that you do.
Hi, I'm Louise Parker. I am, gosh, what am I? I've been thinking a lot about this the last few weeks.
I feel like lifestyle coach doesn't quite sum it up.
Yeah, I'm a sort of, you know, I'm just the word expert always, you know, troubles me a bit. I think I was saying earlier, sort of, we all just sort of, you know, we're winging it. We're always evolving. I'm work in progress, but I'm the founder of a company called Louise Parker. We basically, we very simply coach lifestyle change. And I guess what we do differently, what is unique about what we do, is that we do it in a very scientific way. Everything's evidence-based. We report to governing bodies. We're not allowed to sell a fad or a juice fast. Everything's got to be backed in science. What I bring to the table, I always think of it, I always say to my team is I am the client, you know. I was the yo-yo dieter and I always try and serve our clients in that way, just, you know, client first, take what we know, take what's scientific, what is factual, keep evolving as all sciences and all methods should, and just
sort of create that healthy blueprint for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has to be, it has to be holistic. My background was I was a personal trainer for 14 years, and I was yo-yo dieting as I was doing it. It was ridiculous. And I really felt a need that actually goes back to your point, Francesca, for community. We're better together. And we
Definitely.
need a multidisciplined approach. So we essentially have an MDT team at Louise Parker, in order that we can coach our clients effectively, with
It sounds amazing.
what's scientific, what's, making sure there's no pseudoscience in there too, but also being inventive and also acknowledging things we were saying earlier, that, what Selena does, in my opinion, that's good for overall health. Skin health and how you feel every day absolutely impacts your mood.
I think the three of you all together are the perfect recipe for getting out of lockdown intact. Thank you so much, Louise. That was brilliant. Selena, lovely to have you here as well.
Thank you. My name's Dr. Selena Langdon. I'm an aesthetic doctor. Actually, my background is actually in plastics mostly, but I have also worked in general practice too. I have a clinic called Berkshire Aesthetics out in Maidenhead, and I've been the medical director of that clinic for quite a number of years now. I've always had a dream that the clinic was always going to be a sort of everything under one roof type setting. We are a very passionate team about aesthetics, and it is very much a medical aesthetic clinic as far as we're concerned, and we're very patient centric. We are at that process. Actually, we moved to a new building last year. It's a much larger premises, and we've been able to really expand our services a lot. And we're going to be incorporating surgical services a little bit more, because as I've sort of spent more and more time within the sector now, I've realised that actually there are still things that we can't always do necessarily non-surgically. And I think I've always wanted to be able to be sort of a really big part of my patient's journey, and that if there is something we can't do, I've always wanted to be able to add that service within our practice. And
I always think of Berkshire Aesthetics as having basically every face and body treatment under one roof.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I'm very excited to hear from you, and also find out when you're going to be reopening, so that we can all get
I'd like to be top of that list.
And last but not least, Katie Brindle. Lovely to have you with us too, Katie.
Hello, thank you for having me. Well, I am a Chinese medicine practitioner and founder of the Heiyu method, and having come from a clinic background, I sort of retargeted my attention to focus specifically in self-care. So it's very much about what you can do for yourself and how you can actually sort of between the treatments with other people. So I'm kind of like the toothbrushing of the Chinese medicine sort of end of things.
I love it. And for anyone who's tuning in every day to Katie's sort of Instagram lives as well, I think they can really vouch for the fact that you sort of take the guesswork out of Chinese medicine as well, and you make it very everyday and approachable, which is
thank you.
Which is brilliant for us all. Well, ladies, it's an absolute pleasure to have you all here. And we're going to go over to our first speaker, who is Louise. So, Louise, amazing to have you here. For anyone who hasn't met Louise prior, she is very much London's top lifestyle coach. She is also the best-selling author of the Lean for Life book series, which is a Sunday Times bestseller, and really, really impressive. So I've been obsessed with Louise ever since we first met, because, you know, I very much think...
So I've always had a girl crush on you, so that's great. Keep going.
I think Louise's methods are very much, they're fad-free, they're straightforward, and they actually work. So Louise, maybe we can begin by just talking about, you know, the fact that lockdown has, it's tested all of us in sort of unimaginable ways. And I think, you know, for some, an enormous amount of positivity has come out of lockdown, but for others, you know, they've understandably struggled. So, you know, for those of us who have slipped into slightly bad habits in lockdown, myself included, what are the simple ways that we can get back on track?
Oh, gosh. In terms of getting back on track, I think just actually picking up quickly on what Selena and Katie said, this idea of having everything under one roof, and what Selena was saying about just, it's about sort of prescribing, being patient-centric. My advice on that is to put yourself in the centre of what it is you want to achieve when you come out of lockdown, because and work with what we have and what we know. You know, like a science, look at the evidence, look at the past, look at what hasn't worked for you. Forget what worked for you in January and February, because the world has changed and our needs have changed overnight. So I think I use the word discipline carefully, but people feel at the moment, this is something that I've been hearing. We had a full team meeting today, just touching on how clients are today. And there is a growing sense of the need to be a bit hyper vigilant, and we all feel that. I feel that we've got to achieve, we've got to do our best. And actually, you know, perfectionism is a unicorn called unhappy anyway, so forget perfectionism. But it is about just looking at yourself today, because that's all we have, and prescribing to yourself, as we do with our clients, what's best for you on any given day, in any given hour, so to speak.
So how can we find those things for those of us who are sort of stuck in limbo at the moment and who are hypervigilant? How, I mean, what are your tips on sort of the things that we can do to sort of get us back onto that clean slate?
The first thing to do, it sounds really soft, but actually I think it's a good discipline, is be compassionate. Because being compassionate with yourself, I know this isn't a tangible tip, but I think it's important. Be compassionate with yourself, because if you're not, you are going to enter this spiral of self-sabotage. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, ought to be doing this, perfection.
Yeah, and it's so difficult not to judge ourselves.
It is. We are our harshest critics. Definitely. So it's to be compassionate with yourself and to be realistic. You know, I often say we talk to different clients in different ways. So if I'm talking to a banker, the way I might engage with him is say, well, look, let's think of this as a business plan for your body. Okay, now he can resonate, now he gets it. So let's look at the economic environment, all right? Let's look at your current environment, and then they can understand that. And we all need to consider our personality profiles, what makes us tick, and apply, prescribe what's constructive for us in any given day. So, for example, saying to yourself that I ought to be preparing this perfectly and eating perfectly, or doing the 80-20 rule perfectly, or training every day for an hour.
It's only going to lend us, to sort of falling flat on our faces.
Yeah, the most compassionate thing to do is actually the most constructive thing to do. And that is literally sitting in the moment and going, right, how do I feel? I feel anxious, or I feel groggy, or I feel demotivated. And just allow yourself to feel that overwhelm. And we've got this little saying, we call it a U-turn. It's not, you know, it's not trademarked, it's not particularly clever. But in terms of a U-turn, we behave, we coach our clients to apply CBT thinking to those negative emotions, that feeling of overwhelm. I feel insufficient, I feel not good enough, I'm not doing this properly, I'm spread too thin, you know, just overwhelm. Because I think what we all feel is frustration, overwhelm, and just a bit the frustration is in the uncertainty. So work with what is certain. So your needs being a priority, your health being a priority, is the one certainty that we do have.
So it's sort of about being grateful for sort of what we have, and I don't want to use the word gratitude, but it's sort of like reframing what our present is.
Yes, and look, gratitude is is massively powerful. But I'd be lying. I mean, I have days where I'm thinking, gosh, I'm so lucky. There's a woman she's got 5 children and a husband who's unkind, and she's living with her in-laws. I love you, Nonna. But, you know, there are always people worse off than us.
I know, and I think that's a really good thing to keep in mind.
But also be compassionate with yourself, because it's also normal to go, do you know what? What about me?
Okay, so on the note of compassion, because my thing every night has basically been watching Netflix with an entire bar of Lindt. So I'm compassionate to myself, but at the same time, I need to sort of switch out of that habit. So are there any sort of ways of getting yourself out of that quick rut with an example like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Bizarrely, I don't do... over the years, I've learned to sort of be, it's an overused term, but really mindful about what we call sometimes foods and always foods. And I was sitting with Paul last night and I was like, do you want me to go to the sweetie cupboard? And I got some Ferrero Rocher because I'm so classy.
God,
I ate, you know, I don't know, 8, you know, I ate too many of them. But it's just about, it doesn't matter.
But is that because it's a sometimes food? A sometimes food is something that occasionally you can give yourself because, you know, you need it maybe.
Yeah, it's a sometimes food. Although in that moment last night, you know, I'm work in progress. I was sitting there, and just for a minute, I thought, that's rubbish. Why did I eat all that? And the reason for that actually isn't aesthetics. It isn't my bottom. It isn't the things that worried me 15 years ago. It's because it's that sugar is going to it fuels depression.
Yeah.
That's something I suffer from. It's something I have to be vigilant of, and it's something I have to prioritize. Not because I'm selfish or seeking self-pity, but unless I look after my needs, I can't serve my clients. I can't look after my team. I can't give my children what they need. And one thing we do know for sure is we are all spread very thin. So I think just be realistic about, you know, we're all trying to prioritize.
And I think don't beat yourself up if you do it wrong.
Yes, absolutely. So allow yourself to feel that, oh God, that feeling. It's a real feeling. It's that perception is real. Perception is real. But don't feel it. Let yourself feel it for 90 seconds and then whip yourself out of it and pop straight into the solution and go, now what? So last night I went, well, it's fine. No one's died. And now I'm going to go up to bed, brush my teeth, do a pamper, have a bath, go to bed.
And not eat all the Ferrero Rochers tomorrow.
Well, then
I love that. Okay, well, I'm going to use that going forward, that technique.
Yeah.
So, and
use
now
it at all
about
the ambassadors' parties. Yeah.
So now thinking about fitness, because that's another sort of huge element of what it is that you do with your clients. I mean, many of us are sort of spending lockdown in cities like London, and it's, you know, we've obviously been told now we can go outside and we can exercise more than once a day, which is wonderful. But, you know, we're spending a lot of time inside, and I think that can really have a detrimental effect on our energy levels. So how can we find the motivation to exercise? And I suppose sort of how can we make it more fun when we actually go and do it?
Yeah, good question. I'll start with motivation really quickly, because just bear in mind, motivation is always a temporary swell, okay? And our motivation isn't necessarily high at the moment. So accept that. In the moment, prescribe yourself the most constructive exercise for you on any given day. So it's not constructive to say, I'm going to do an hour-long workout at home, you know, first thing, and you've got
if that doesn't suit your personality.
If
actually you'd rather be lying in bed. Yeah,
it's got to work with your day, with the realities of life. That's your personality profile. It's your needs. It's your it's what you find pleasure in. You have to align your rituals, your habits, so to speak, with pleasure. In my opinion, that is the sweet spot. When we when our clients have that aha moment, whether it's about exercise or refining, prescribing what's constructive for them on any given day, is when we take what we know to be good for us, okay, generally speaking, and we coach that. And then we've got to align it, think of two circles. We've got to align it with pleasure, with what feels good.
That's sort of recognizing the endorphins that we get from the exercise.
Yes, that's the sweet spot. So you're going to get the endorphins. We know that. Sometimes that's not enough to get yourself up. So a quick thing is just to do something, right? Just start the engine, just do something. Do a plank. Where you are, just drop to the floor and do a plank. And while you're doing the plank, you might want to multitask and just give yourself a bit of a talking to about what you can do for the rest of the day that's going to serve your body. And a term I use is pay your daily rent to your body. Sometimes it's tuppence, sometimes it's a fiver, and sometimes, you know, it's a whacking good check.
Because I think even now, whilst we are in lockdown, you know, we don't necessarily have the time to exercise, or a lot of us would say, I can't fit it in because I'm homeschooling kids, I'm still working, I'm working twice as much as I was previously. How do I fit it in? And I think you're paying your daily rent. That phrase that you sort of use, which is so great, is exactly that. It's finding the little pockets in the day, isn't it, to do that exercise?
Yeah, I would. And look, I'll share the things that I've not nailed, because I am imperfect too. Is that was very much 7 weeks ago my intention. Every morning I'm going to go for a walk and and as the days have gone on, you know, more urgent things have popped up, even though I know my self-care is the most important thing. So I'm trying to multitask, because soon I've got in plan, I know that I'm going to be able to go for a walk up the downs, and that's going to be good for me to get outside, to get some sunlight, to do some gentle movement. Movement is exercise. So we've got to stop thinking, we've got to stop thinking about workouts as punishment. It's never going to work.
And killing ourselves to sort of run for hours and lift weights.
Yeah, you've got to find what works for you. So if on that day it's a walk, I find it effective to do something first thing, partly because I'm struggling to prioritize my priorities. So actually, if I put some movement in first thing, that's going to set me up for the day mentally, motivationally, and also in a way that I need to do to support business and for family. And I'm quite a resourceful multitasker. So on that walk,
you have to be, you have 3 children.
Yeah. But, you know, on that walk, instead of taking all of them, I might take Sophie, because her needs are higher today. So that gives me one-on-one time with Sophie. And
that's a lovely way of integrating family into it at the same time, and making sure that everyone's getting the exercise and the fresh air.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I will try and do a little bit of what I call cardio sculpting, which is just the way we work out. We don't have enough time to sort of go into the very highly complex method that I've
You can do some demos for us at the end when we do the Q&A.
Oh, I'd love that. I'd love that. I've got my Olivia von Harley workout pants on.
Oh my God, those are amazing.
Do you know what? Can I be really unelegant? This is a top tip. Not my ankles. They are my, I've battled with the whole fashion thing, and I do need some advice from the Tatler girls about the whole chunky heels. But actually,
I don't think any of us are wearing heels right now. I think it's all about trainers, so we can get outside and run.
Absolutely. But I'm putting my trainers on. I'm dressing as well as I can. So I've got leggings on because they're comfy, and a top on, you know, that's presentable, because how we dress affects our mood. But by putting trainers on, And trainers with a bounce, think a Nike Air Max, or actually
something cool and retro.
Pumas that I've just found. Yeah, something not flat soled. It gives you a bounce in your step. And actually,
and that's probably what gets you out and exercising.
Absolutely.
That's clever.
When I'm speaking to a CEO of a FTSE 100 company, perhaps for the first time, and I'm feeling a bit nervous, I put my Manolos on and I pace, because how we dress, how we move affects our mood. So in lockdown, I've got my bouncy trainers on because it just makes me feel a bit more like Pooh Bear, a bit more active. And actually, if the leggings are on and the trainers on, it's much easier for me in the evening. I'm doing some physio rehab for Millie, my middle child, who's got an ACL injury. So we lie on the sitting room floor, and Coco can be doing her thing. Paul can be coming in and out and doing his thing. And while I'm doing Millie's physio, I'm engaging her glutes. I'm doing my clams. So I'm just paying a bit of daily rent. And
that is the ultimate multitasking.
Yeah.
I'm going to spend every day from now on in lockdown in trainers and leggings, just so I can drop to a plank when I suddenly find the moment.
I'll put together a little.
Please do. We can share it with everyone who watched this. That would be amazing. So on a nutritional level, I mean, look, all of us, I think, went slightly mad when lockdown was first announced, didn't we? And we sort of went into the supermarkets and we placed huge Ocado orders, and we, stocked up our kitchen cabinets with long life substitutes and pasta and all sorts. So how do we break that sort of cycle? The big plates of spaghetti every night, or maybe that's just me doing that. What are the things that we can be replacing them with, all the healthy swaps?
Keep it really simple. There are a few things. Look at the low-hanging fruit. Just do the easiest stuff first. Okay, so the easy bits, I'm a firm believer in batching. So I've just got my cookbooks just being re-released, and actually I'm making myself sit down and just look at, right, of these recipes, what are the most comforting? Because we all need comfort food, and we all need to redefine what comfort food is. Okay, we need comfort, we're humans. So it's about redefining the comfort food and batching. So I'm finding recipes that are easy to batch, because
like what? Which recipes?
Like I will use things like lentil, sounds really boring, but actually really delicious lentil bakes with cheese on top, and I can do one style, and I can batch it in glass Tupperware things that go in the freezer. And then as I've batched it and I'm putting them in the sections, I can just adapt it to different people's needs. So I'll have little ones for lunchtime, bigger ones when we've got family dinners. I'll do little ones for my dad, so we can drop over to him with some chili on top. So it's just about batching, keeping it simple, personalizing it, so it's ready to go. So that the night before I go to bed, I just look in the fridge, it's suboptimal, and you've got something, you've got your backup, because we all need a plan, and a backup. So
I love the idea of putting cheese on top of something that is actually incredibly sort of healthy and protein packed. In my eyes, cheese on top of anything suddenly makes it comforting and a treat, even if it's just a little bit.
Yes, and the fat is important. The fat is important. The cheese fat, questionably, but we are all about, doing it in a delicious way. But keep the fat in, keep the olive oil in, because we need that to sustain, balance our appetite for our food, for our mood, for our skin, things like that. And then other little things, those little shot jars. Please feel free to do this when I'm ranting too long. I welcome that. Feedback is a gift. The little shot glasses. I'll send you a picture. I did it this morning, actually. The girls were just you know, I can't prepare things like I used to before Corona. So I'm just getting little shot glasses, which I've ordered off Amazon, which I shouldn't be, I know. And I fill them up with almonds or nuts, or, you know, candied nuts, things like that. Again, batch, so it's really easy. And I don't take a whole sundae. It's if I'm making candied nuts, I make loads, I batch them, I freeze them, and then you've got a little shot glass, and then you've got a little shot glass of blueberries, and it's all about presenting it beautifully. So if my girls want to have a snack that what I would call is organically overweight food, or perhaps it's healthy, but perhaps it's not as honest as it could be.
Might be hiding a little bit of sugar in there.
Yeah, and that's fine too, in balance. I let my kids do that. You know, Graze bars are brilliant. I'm letting, those are there for emergencies. That's great. There's value in that. But, you know, we want to keep as much whole food as possible, because I don't know about you, I'm finding that really hard. Is a little shot of almonds or candied nuts, if I've done the cinnamon ones, a little batch of blueberries or raspberries, and another little shot glass, and maybe that's a bit bigger, of popcorn that I've made.
And so these are good sort of nice little snacks for them to have throughout the day.
Yeah, what I find is, and then again, I batch. I've got all these little trays. I'll put a nice white company serviette. So it's so quick. They're like, Mummy, we need something. And I've got to be on a, you know, a Zoom call in 4 minutes.
And that's so clever, because that's what stops you. As soon as you have something healthy, ready to go, ready to grab, you don't make the bad decisions. So really
invest in the system.
Yeah.
And the batching, like step back from it, rather than investing in the self-sabotage and all that stuff. It's just such a waste of energy. But also, I'm a firm believer in, if you present things beautifully, first of all, kids will eat it. Yeah, I've put popping candy on oat bran porridge just to get Coco engaged, and that's fun.
That is a genius idea.
Then you wean them off the sort of the cocaine of foods, basically.
Well, that's so much better than Cocoa Pops.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cereal is it's suboptimal. I used to be really strict about that, and now I'm like, actually, that was wrong too. You don't want to demonize any food. That's not unhealthy.
I think what you were just saying is very much about sort of balance and making sure that you're armed and ready for when the sort of cravings or the pangs sort of hit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the best way to do it is do it with whole food while you can, but that's not always easy. You don't want to be making it there and then. Who's got the time? You're hungry, you need comforting. Don't blame yourself for that. We're humans, we're hungry, we need comfort, and we need it now. We're in a hurry.
And also lockdown is the best time to be doing all of this. You know, if you're like me and you decide that you want to spend the entire day baking, bake it, do it in bulk, and then freeze it and you're done. Thank you so much, Louise.
Can I
that was
send
amazing.
you some recipes for your bulking tomorrow? That
I would absolutely love recipes. I'll share them with everyone who's watching this as well.
I don't have time to make.
Definitely. Thank you so much. That was brilliant. And we'll come back to you with some questions, I'm sure, at the end.
You're very generous. You're brilliant. Thank you, Francesca.
You truly are. Thank you, Louise. Dr. Selena, thank you also for being here with us tonight. Very excited to speak with you. So for everyone who sort of doesn't know Selena, she's the founder of Berkshire Aesthetics, which is the most gorgeous clinic outside of London. And I think, like we said earlier, very much everything under one roof. But, you know, Dr. Selena, I mean, since lockdown, many of us have relaxed sort of what we're doing with our skin. And, you know, whether that's sort of the fact that we're not using our SPF every day, or maybe it's the fact that we're sort of not wearing makeup anymore. How, as normality resumes and starts to pick up, should we be preparing our skin for sort of the big grand reveal? And what are the products, I suppose, at home that we should be using now to get it on track?
Yeah, I think everybody has probably experienced what I think everyone's calling it lockdown skin or a lockdown face. And, you know, we are spending more time indoors. We're not, you know, necessarily putting makeup on, and it might mean we're not cleansing the skin as much as normal. Maybe we're not going outside getting much vitamin D or anything like that now because we're not getting the same sort of level of sun exposure we would usually do. So there, you know, there are lots of things that we can try and, you know, think about now. In an effort to sort of get our skin ready for when we might start actually going back to some level of normality, whenever that will happen. I've sort of been suggesting to my patients that they can do sort of at-home treatments actually, which we've been a little bit more adventurous with compared to, you know, how it has been previously, because we've got to try and engage with our patients, you know, in a different way now. And things
we're
that
doing
you
lots of virtual consultations, aren't
we? Yes,
you?
exactly. Yeah, we're doing lots of virtual consultations because we've just had to adapt and try a different method of speaking to patients and sort of getting them engaged as much as possible, still in a different way.
And is it still possible to sort of assess somebody's skin through the virtual consultation and recommend the right products?
It's tricky. It's not straightforward because, you know, in our clinic we have 3D imaging technology. We use the Visio. We have, you know, different equipment that allows us to see skin in a completely different light. And, you know, obviously looking at somebody through Zoom or, you know, another type of video conferencing system, it's not quite the same. So I'm not doing a blanket, you know, sort of rule for everybody. It's whoever I feel is appropriate for this type of consultation, I have been offering it. And I think that, you know, for many of us who have been reliant on other treatments, at least if I can suggest at-home skincare that is sensible, that will work and is effective, then, you know, we've sort of been advising along those lines.
So what are those things? What are the sensible at-home products, I suppose, that we need to be using right now?
So I mean, I've been advising you can basically effectively almost do like your own at-home type facial treatments, and that's using a lot of either chemical exfoliators or mechanical exfoliators. So, you know, there are a lot of very clever products that have alpha hydroxy acids in them, or beta hydroxy acids. So we have, you know, for example, we've got a good product from Zedo Skin Health. It's called the enzymatic peel. It's got glycolic acid in there. That's an AHA. You can put that on your skin for a few hours, and it's almost like doing a very, very light, you know, home chemical peel.
And there's no sort of redness or irritation after doing it?
No, so this is, you know, very minimal downtime, but at least it gives you the opportunity. And if you have been getting very dry skin or your skin's feeling congested, it's an option to, you know, put it onto the skin. And I put it on my face, but I wear it overnight and then I wash it off in the morning, and it just makes my skin look a lot brighter the following day. There are other chemical exfoliants you can use. There are actual creams that will contain, you know, alpha hydroxy acids. I love the RG Expoderm. It's a really good product. It will allow you to just again cause a little bit of light chemical exfoliation. But you can use mechanical exfoliators. There's some fantastic polishes that, you know, are really good, but they're very clever. There's a new one,
like a gritty sort of scrub.
Yeah, like a sort of paste. Abargi released a brand new product from the Professional C serum range, but it's called the Professional C microdermabrasion polish, and it's a mask as well, but it's got a 30% L-ascorbic acid in, so it's actually a very, very high quality product.
L-ascorbic acid is sort of like a derivative of vitamin C.
Vitamin
so
C,
it's
exactly,
great for the brightness of the skin.
Really, really high percentage though. Yeah, you don't get normally lots of products with 30% in, so it's really high. So it does give a bit of a tingling effect on the face when you put it on, but you can use it as a polish, but then you can also leave it on as a mask as well, and so it will.
That sounds amazing. It's exactly what we need, like strip the dead skin off before we get back out there.
Exactly. But, you know, we have to also be thinking about other products. You should just have a good product regimen anyway, and maybe this is a really good time to be thinking about that, where you have a good quality face wash, a good vitamin C that you're using, you know, a good antioxidant, a good moisturizer, one that's a humectant, so it just sucks water into the skin, nothing that's heavily oily, because we don't really want that on our skins at the moment. A good sunscreen. It's so important to be using sunscreen.
And even when we're indoors as well, we need to be using the SPF, right? 100%. I mean, this came up in our last webinar actually, but, you know, I think particularly from the blue light devices that, you know, we're all staring at right now, the phones, the laptops, the TV screens, it's terrifying.
It is. I mean,
Yeah, no, it's important purely because, you know, UVA, we've got it all year round and it comes through the window. So if you're not protecting your skin, I always say to everybody, you need to have a factor 50 sunscreen on every day of the year. It doesn't matter what the weather is.
And which brand do you love? I mean, I love the Helio Care one.
Yeah, I'm the same. My preference is always for Helio Care. It's the gel oil free. It's an SPF 50.
So you're not shiny after using it.
No residue. Doesn't look white and cakey on the skin. So it's good for every skin type. But it's a really good one.
And it smells absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's got a really beautiful scent to it, actually. And actually, the microdermabrasion polish that I was talking about also has a really lovely scent as well. And then actually, finally. And then retinol, and any sort of retinol we should really be thinking about right now is really important, because this is a good opportunity to actually use this time when we're not really seeing many people face to face, where maybe it's not a bad time to think about using a vitamin A, because a lot of people are quite reluctant with vitamin A's because they know it causes a lot of peeling, flaking, redness. But actually, you can use this time when you're not out and about very much, and encourage your skin to start having that sort of cell renewal happen and take place. And if you were really adventurous and quite, you know, keen on having a full rejuvenation of your skin, my #1 favorite has always been Avage Nuderm. It's the best system available, and it's been around for a really long time.
That's the whole regimen, isn't it?
It's the whole thing. It's every product. It's a regimen that you use in the morning and every night as well. And you just can't get anything better. It's like the sort of Rolls-Royce version of all sort of skincare products. And it just means that although, yes, initially you might be getting some, you know, changes to your skin that are a little bit irritable, you know, because it will peel and flake a lot to start with. But once you've got yourself through that first 6-week phase, you know, your skin will get healthier and better and better. So I have been saying that this is a really good time to be using that, just purely because you've got the opportunity. A lot of people are very reluctant when they're going to work to do that system. There's a lot of
we're all at home now.
It's really hard. Yeah.
So this is the best time, and I've been saying to everybody that this, if you can and you're happy to do it now. But then obviously, you know, we've just got to make sure we're not doing too much sun exposure at the same time, because your skin's peeling a lot, and so you have to be careful with that too. So SPF every day.
Particularly next week, it's going to be like 25 degrees. Can I ask if we can hold them until the very end? Only because we need to keep on track, because otherwise, I'm going to let the time, please. But, you know, we need to finish by about 7 so we can do some Q&As, but I promise we'll come back to you, Louise. But Selena, you also mentioned that you're doing the virtual consultations, which is completely genius. But, you know, obviously there are still a lot of treatments you can't administer. You do a lot of injectables, sort of Botox and filler, and you can't do those virtually. So what are the ways that we can sort of prolong the effects of things like Botox and filler as they start to wear off? I mean, I can't be the only person who's worried about the fact that I can't get my Botox for probably the next 2 months.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously it's difficult, but, you know, this time we've had such a prolonged period of time away from, you know, the normal procedures that we'd usually have. And the difficult thing is that actually with Botox and fillers is they don't last a really, really long time. So, you know, Botox, you're having to repeat it every 3 to 4 months, and some fillers might only last 8 to 9 months. So there are things that you could do. You can use a collagen supplement. I have a lot of my patients on a particular one called Totally Derma. It's a really good, it's a bovine collagen, so it's not necessarily appropriate for vegetarian, vegan patients, or those that, you know, want halal products. But I like it because it's such a high grade collagen, and there's so much collagen in the product. It's a powder and it's a drink. It stimulates the collagen, the elastin, your hyaluronic acid as well. So that's something that you can at least be doing every day, actually, to help your skin along. Again, I'm going back to vitamin A. You know, if everybody can get onto a retinol or a tretinoin, as long as you're not pregnant or breastfeeding, that it's such an important product to add into your, especially night routine, because it's what's going to prolong, you know, your skin health and also improve like fine lines and wrinkles. Sunscreen, we have to still
it's turning the skin cells over so much, isn't it?
Every
Therefore,
night.
any fine lines that you do have,
yeah, like, definitely. And it can help, especially for this area and around the eyes. You have to be very careful when you're applying a vitamin A around the eye area. It's a very strong product, and the skin is very thin there. You just have to be mindful of that. But you can almost train your skin to become tolerant to vitamin A, and you just have to, you know, get used to it. And actually, this again is an ideal time to build your tolerance to it. So you have to kind of push yourself with it and get yourself to a point where you feel comfortable putting it on the skin daily, but you might just start in small increments and, you know, introduce it a couple of times a week. Again, just vitamin C, antioxidant. You can use topical hyaluronic acids as well. They can help, you know, with your skin, but they're mostly just moisturizers. The only thing that I've ever seen actually, or read about, that actually can prolong the effect of Botox is zinc. Zinc supplements are apparently able to increase.
Really? I've never heard that.
Botox. Yeah, so I read around it. So, I mean, it might be a little bit late now because a lot of people's Botox will probably have worn off by this point, but in the future, and you never know, we might, you know, as I said, as the way the sort of the epidemic is going, there may be other peaks of this epidemic that we're looking at some point. There may be other lockdowns that we have to, you know, appreciate could happen. And potentially at that point, if you want to prolong the effects of a treatment, a zinc supplement can help. But actually, I think
I'm going to go into the second wave of this with zinc and with like batch cooked stuff. All of Louise's recipe in my freezer.
Zinc. Yeah.
But Selena, it's a really interesting point, because, you know, when we do go back to the aesthetic clinic to have all of these treatments like the Botox and the filler, it's obviously going to be a very different landscape. And I think, you know, we're all desperate to get back and have these treatments, but, you know, how do we actually ensure the safety of ourselves when we go back, and, you know, and yourself and your staff when we go back into the clinic after the lockdown sort of does lift?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is that you go to a reputable doctor and a reputable clinic. And I think what this whole process is going to show is actually what we've kind of allowed ourselves to get used to, which is where these sorts of treatments are often provided in unregulated buildings, in, you know, places that just aren't appropriate, you know, in the back room of a hair salon or something like that. Yeah. That's just not going to cut it now, because there is no way you can demonstrate that you're being safe or responsible. Ultimately, you know, I have a large clinic, I have a large number of staff that work for me, and I have to make sure they're going to be safe when these treatments are, you know, are restarted at some point. And from our side of things, we're a CQC registered clinic, so we have a lot of policies, procedures already in place. We're very strict about hygiene, as it is anyway, but we're going to be introducing a lot more now, so that it's going to be very different to what, you know, people are used to. You may not be able to wait inside a waiting room. You're probably going to have to wait to be called in. You'll have to wash your hands. There will be pre-appointment checks.
I bet there'll be a lot of like PPE as well.
Oh yes,
for patients, doctors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, my staff, we're going to be fully kitted out in the most protective clothing we can find and, you know, get hold of. We always still have to make sure that, you know, my number one priority throughout this whole time is that the NHS has had sufficient supplies, and I've wanted to ensure that I've not encroached on that, but I also then have to think about how I keep my clinic safe as well. But we're going to probably have to supply our patients with PPE as well, because we need to make sure they're using something that is safe to use. So if they're not having a facial treatment and it's a body procedure, they should have a mask on. You know, it's only sensible. There'll be longer appointment times. It will just be a very different way of practicing, and I think.
And do you know yet when it is that you're going to reopen?
We don't 100% know at the moment. There have been lots of discussions that have been happening this week. The difficult thing is, because of the fact that this industry as a whole is not regulated, which is a really worrying side of things, and maybe this will push for more regulation. The only organisation that we can sort of look to is the JCCP, that's the Joint Council of Cosmetic Practitioners. They sort of made an announcement yesterday that they feel that we fall in line with personal care. And that those services would be available after the 4th of July. So I think a lot of other doctors that I know of, they're all sort of under the assumption that July might be the sort of time when we might be looking to do it.
You must have such a big waiting list right now.
It's been interesting, I have to say. I don't know, I was always under the assumption that people wouldn't be as worried about it during this time because there were other things to worry about right now. But actually, again, it's shown me that my patients are so diverse. There are some that have been so upset at the fact that they cannot come for these treatments at the moment because, you know, I'm not just an aesthetic doctor, I'm almost like a counsellor sometimes when they come to talk to me and speak to me, and we have nice, you know, appointments where we're able, I know so much about my patients, and I think losing that contact has been difficult because I see them on such a regular basis, and it's been just a different way. But I have to say, actually, when we sort of announced that we're probably not going to be open until July time, we had a huge number of patients contact us, just really being supportive and saying, actually, we appreciate that you've tried to stay in touch and you're keeping us up to date. But I assume it will be July at the earliest, but that could change. That could continue to change.
I mean, it's weird because we obviously went into lockdown in March, which felt like winter, and basically now it's peak summer. And I think when we do finally emerge, and probably when we can get back into clinics, like you say, it's going to be July, and we'll suddenly be back in our skimpy sort of summery clothes. And I don't know about you, but I've not sort of done anything from the neck down for a long time. So what are the treatments looking forward that we can start sort of tentatively planning for?
Yeah, I think body treatment, we're a very much device-led clinic. We are really focused on body contouring actually here. So we're a big cool sculpting clinic. But actually, I think whether or not there's going to be this sort of drive towards treatments that can deliver quicker results, I'm a real advocate for trying to find procedures that can give you permanent outcomes as well. So we've actually got a new technology called Body Tight, which we're introducing to the clinic. It's slightly different to the procedures that we've added before. As I mentioned earlier, we're sort of encompassing more surgical treatments now, but again, very still.
So Body Tight is surgery, or it's non-surgery?
It's categorized under the field of surgery, yes, because it's still minimally invasive, but it's only performed under local anaesthetic, so it's not a procedure under a general anaesthetic, but it's radio frequency. And it's a probe that can be inserted under the skin, and basically it can cause shrinkage of the tissue, shrinkage of the fat. And actually there's an attachment that can also remove the fat as well. So,
and can you use this? I mean, the clue might be in the name, but can you use it anywhere all over the body?
Yeah. So the amazing thing about this is actually it's a module that actually has multiple applicators on it. So there is Body Tight, Face Tight, Acutight, Neck Tight, Cellutite for a really good treatment for cellulite. And actually there's been a lot of talk about Breast Tight recently, which is where we're able to do a non-surgical breast lift now as well.
Gosh, so that's really interesting.
And no scars.
I'm always having people come to me and ask for non-surgical alternatives.
Yeah,
to,
so it's going to be an option. It's also got an amazing handpiece attached to it called the Morpheus 8 actually, which is part of the same system. And that's a radio frequency microneedling technology, which I think is probably what's going to replace some of the other injectable treatments if people are looking for more long-term outcomes. Something like that, because it can give a longer lasting result. Potentially that is where we're going to be looking, because
and Body Tight, with Body Tight, how quickly can you see the results from it?
It's pretty much immediate, but you will, as with any kind of procedure where if you're looking within the categories of things like liposuction, those types of treatment, you tend to see a result almost immediately. But you will probably see things get a little bit better and better over sort of about 3 to 6 months. But you can get much quicker results than with some of our other body contouring treatments, which tend to take about 3 to 4 months to reveal results.
Yeah, cool sculpting is the other one that you're sort of very proficient at, and that's far less invasive than a Body Tight. I've had pretty much every area of my body that I can have cool sculpted. But it does take longer, doesn't it? You're looking at about 6 months, and then you do sometimes need to repeat cycle to sort of get the effects.
Yeah, but it's still a really popular option because surgery isn't for everybody, and if people aren't looking necessarily for a quick fix, it is still a treatment they could potentially have, but it might just be that they're waiting a little bit long. But everybody's response to the treatment is different. Some people will see results really quickly, others it might take a little bit longer. It all depends kind of where you're starting, and if you're close to your goal weight, you will always see results a lot quicker than somebody who isn't necessarily exercising or following a healthy diet. But there are lots of options, and this is, as I said, it's always been my dream to kind of be able to say, actually, I have something for everything and something for everyone. And if you're not keen on necessarily going down that road, we have other treatments that we can consider, more skin tightening treatments and that type of thing, and those can give you as much confidence as a treatment where you're removing fat as well.
No, it's so true. And what's very interesting again about the situation that we find ourselves in is that we might be let out in July. It may not be until December, January next year that we actually end up on a holiday where we need our bodies to sort of look how we would like them to. So sign us all up on the 4th of July for your little round of Body Tight before we all get back.
It's going to be very different, but I think it's given us a lot of time to kind of just learn how to adapt, because I foresee this being the way we will probably continue to practice for a while. Unfortunately, coronavirus isn't going anywhere anytime soon, and so I think we've all got to accept that there's just going to be a very different way for us to manage and cope, and that's for the foreseeable future until you know.
And we'll just have to grit our teeth and last without our Botox for a little bit.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Selena. So lovely speaking with you as always. And Katie, who is our last but certainly not least practitioner. You know, you've just introduced yourself at the beginning of the webinar, but Katie's the founder of the Hey method, and she is a complete font of knowledge on traditional Chinese medicine, as we're about to find out. So firstly, Katie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. So nice to be here.
I mean, you've been practicing Chinese medicine for, I think, about 20 years, which is absolutely extraordinary. Everything from, I think we sort of said, Qigong to gua sha to meditation.
Acupuncture. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, why is it that you think this sort of very powerful ancient technique is so necessary, I suppose, in a time like lockdown?
I think one of the main reasons is because Western medicine is so good that we've all got quite complacent over the last 100 years. And I think suddenly with something like coronavirus, where it's stretching Western medicine, dealing with it, that when it then comes to all the other things that we normally take to our doctors, we're kind of being asked to really try and protect our NHS and try and look after ourselves as best as we possibly can. And it suddenly becomes our civic duty to actually really do our very best to keep ourselves in good health. And traditionally, what I always say to people on my live feeds is that people used to die all the time in the old days. Things like coronavirus would have been influenza, and that would have killed people then. Or if you caught a cold and your immune system was weak, it could have killed you. You didn't have the privilege of NHS hospitals up the road. And these ancient techniques have developed over thousands of years to serve mankind. And therefore, there is an opportunity now to use some of these things in conjunction with Western medicine, which is, I think...
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, let's talk about immunity, actually, because you just touched on that. And I think it's a really big concern for people right now. You know, obviously, a lot of people are starting to think about going back to work, or they're considering, you know, preparing their children, young children, to return to school in the following weeks. So how can Chinese medicine sort of help to strengthen our bodies and, I suppose, help us to fight infection at the moment?
Well, there's multiples of ways. And I think Louise touched on one of the first ones, which is about gratitude and compassion she was talking about. And if you look at, say, there's 4 pillars of Taoism. Well, there's 12, but there's 4 like big ones. And compassion is one of the most important things. And to be compassionate with the self is a very important thing. But to be honest, there's lots of techniques that Chinese medicine offers, many of which have been scientifically proven to strengthen the immune system. So gua sha is one, Qigong is another, meditation is another. These are things that people have been practicing for thousands of years because they absolutely indeed and have been scientifically proven to strengthen the immune system. And it's time to take these things seriously and to try and incorporate them into our daily practice as best we can.
I mean, like physical health aside, I mean, one of the other issues that's obviously been highlighted a lot through lockdown is mental health. And I think, you know, obviously a lot of us are looking forward to returning to sort of normal life. But a lot of people are still quite anxious, understandably, about re-entering the world post-lockdown. You know, whether that's because they're sort of worried about a second wave of the pandemic, or maybe it's because they can't sort of pick up an old routine so easily. So, I mean, what techniques would you recommend as sort of a Chinese medicine practitioner that can really help us to calm the anxiety that we might be expected to encounter upon re-entering the world?
One of the best ways, there's many ways to deal with anxiety. One way actually is to have a plan. In fact, again, Louise, you said plan, what was it? You said plan, and back up.
You make notes on Louise's lecture.
Have a plan, but but expect it to flex, and that's okay. It has to flex.
That's basically like my to-do list, which has 20 things on it every day, and like I only get through 1 and 19 go over to the next day. A plan, but it flexes.
I mean, I didn't sort of to kind of like spew them back out again. I actually took that for myself. Well, that's a really good idea. But actually, when you're dealing with anxiety, anxiety is a manifestation in the fire element, which is in the heart in Chinese medicine. And having a plan is a very important way to kind of contain the heart by actually thinking, this is what I am going to do. It gives me a structure to how I'm going to handle myself, rather than feeling overwhelmed and vulnerable and powerless. It's about going, okay, what am I going to do to sort this out? Okay, these are some measures that I can take to actually become powerful in this situation and take control. So, for example, you know, the government is saying, you know, be vigilant, wash your hands, socially distant, use hand sanitizer, be sensible, use your common sense. I mean, you know, there are certain things that we do, but what I love about the things that I advocate is that there's things on top of that that give you kind of extra power. And that's one of the reasons why I set the Qigong class up every morning, because Qigong is scientifically proven to strengthen the immune system. Do it. Do it then. You know, it's going to make a difference, and meditation as well. And I think to try and make it easy, I actively didn't just sort of say, well, go on YouTube and follow something that I pre-recorded. It's like, I will do it with you. You know, I would.
And then because also people don't necessarily understand how these things work, and they might feel silly sort of just trying to do it at home by themselves. So I think when you're there and you're brilliant and you're great fun to sort of watch and sort of do it with, then I think that makes everyone feel much more confident about trying something new. Yes, and I think the other wonderful thing about social media, which, I mean, let's face it, has been a godsend in the last 8 weeks. I mean, it's beyond all comprehension of how fantastic it is. But what I've also noticed that's emerged out of what I've done, which I never knew or intended or foresaw, was this incredible community, which is without question coming out of people regularly coming into these activities. That everyone knows each other now. Literally, it's quite funny. Everyone's asking. That's what happens, you know, when you sort of create a virtual community. It is really lovely. And the thing is, anxiety is the negative of the heart fire in Chinese medicine, and joy is the uprising. So that kind of, and when you feel joyful and happy and strong, it's much harder for pathogenic factors to get a foothold in the body, and that again is scientifically proven. It is. That's so interesting. So if you can create a feeling of joy within you, then you can't physically feel anxious. Absolutely. It's much, much harder for the body to get sick if it's happy. And I don't mean unrooted happiness that's just kind of giggly hysteria. What I mean is proper grounded, centered love of the self, love of humanity, love of where we are in that position right now. And it's a way the Chinese masters talk about this. They call it transcendent emotions, where you're basically alchemizing the negative into a positive. And you can, without question, transcend anxiety into the higher vibration of the human spirit. And again, we do this every day. Okay, well, we need some tips from you later on as well. In fact, I think we've got something planned later. We won't say anything just now. Yeah. But another issue that, well, I think it's an issue not just in lockdown, but always, is that of sleep. I don't think I'm alone in probably struggling to fall to sleep most nights at the moment. So what does traditional Chinese medicine have for us that can really sort of help with insomnia and just not being able to drop off? Well, this is honestly, I was on a live feed last night, and my goodness me, we were in on this one. Such a fantastic piece of advice on sleep, because something that the way Chinese medicine describes sleep is that it's all to do with your circulation, okay? That basically your circulation is on the exterior of the body in the day, i.e. in your muscles because you're moving about. And then at night, it moves to the interior, which is why we have a duvet, because you feel then you need to be warm because the blood's going to the inside to repair. And one of the problems is that for the body to be healthy, one of the tenets of Chinese medicine is the free flow of qi and blood around the body. It's got to move, okay? Yeah. And if that movement is obstructed in any shape or form, it won't flow properly, and that's where the problem lies. So there's two reasons why we're not sleeping very well. The first is in normal life, we're very stressed. And the stress response puts a lot of stress hormones into the bloodstream, which is not, so it means it's not great blood, and also puts a lot of the blood into the muscles for fight or flight, which means it's stuck. So that's one problem. And then going to the gym aggravates it even further, because Western kind of like sort of running on the treadmill and like doing your 45 minutes of like cardio is adding more stress hormones to the body. So the whole thing's got stuck. Then when we're in lockdown, we're not exercising enough, or we're not getting out and about enough. So the circulation isn't getting outwards enough. And therefore when it goes— So it's a circulation issue? In Chinese medicine, yes. So what you have to do is you've got to rectify the circulation to enable this flow of circulation to go to the exterior in the daytime so that it can go back into the interior at night. But it needs to be good quality circulation. So it mustn't be full of stress hormones. It mustn't be full of toxicity. And
for the hormonal optimization, is that right? For the whole—
Sorry, I didn't hear that, sorry.
In order to have that hormonal optimization, so you're minimizing, you know, adrenaline, cortisol, and in your sleep,
calming the entire body down.
The ghrelin, yeah.
Right, and the lengthier way of doing this is the Qigong and the meditation, but the snapshot way of doing it is tapping and the rescue breath, which is what— I've seen you do this on your Instagram Live, so tell us about tapping. Well,
how will that help me sleep better?
And because what it does is it allows the circulation to move freely into this. It allows any sort of blood that's got stuck into the muscles to move freely into the circulatory systems. And also when you're tapping the long bones, which is the arms and the legs, you're energizing the stem cells, which is incredibly good for the body and the immune system. But also what you're doing when we're tapping is we're doing that alongside the healing sound vibrations, the laughter qigong. We're making sure that what we're circulating around the body is really good quality chi and blood, which is what's important.
And so do we do that during the day, or do we do it just before we go to, or do I do it in the middle of the night when I'm lying in bed not sleeping?
Well, the program that I like to advise is to do qigong in the morning. Louise, you were saying the same thing, that basically exercise is extremely good first thing in the morning. The day is ascending, the yang energy of the day is going upwards, and the body is part of that process and wants to energize. And qigong means breath practice. It means you're using breath, which is oxygen, which is the #1 healing modality to the body when it's at its ascending, when the body wants to start moving. See, it's like a breakfast of air, because in Chinese medicine, the body is nourished by air, oxygen, and food. Not, you know, we've all been breathing the whole time. None of us eating anything. So there's a lot of emphasis on food in our culture, but breath is the #1. And again, you can do the same exercises at night, but it's better to slow them down. The healing sounds are brilliant to do before you go to bed. They are brilliant at getting the body vibrating in the right way. So important.
I mean, I think the power of breath cannot be underestimated either. I mean, I've tried all sorts actually to get to sleep, you know, from magnesium to sort of those soundtracks of croaking frogs. And actually it's when I just lie there and really focus on the breathing. And, you know, I suppose it becomes a meditation, doesn't it? Just sort of counting and focusing on the breath in that way.
The best way to, in summary, to ensure good night's sleep is to look after what you're doing in the day. So if you're not sleeping well, you need to ensure that you are moving good quality blood around the body all day long. And the reason why we use the tapper in the Heiyu method is because what we're doing, oh my goodness, I've got everyone assaulting me. I did ask them to keep the room empty, but
what is going on in your room?
I've got my dog, I've got
we have to be flexible.
I've got my son coming in. It's like, oh my God, okay. Sorry about this, folks.
It all looks very serene from what I can see. I can just see this like beautiful conservatory.
Well, that makes so much sense to me, Katie. I'm just like nodding all over. It's so true what you say about during the day.
Yeah,
you know, that affects our sleep because it's all these micro moments of what you do, how you think, how you breathe, and there is a resistance to meditation and certain things like that. And it's, you know, it's cited in science. It's evidence backed.
It's so true, and Louise is right. Everything that you do during the day does add up to that sort of good night's sleep, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You need to, this is why I put the reset part into the Heiyu method. The Heiyu method is like the absolute distillation of like everything that I know. And I don't know everything at all, but I know that Chinese medicine has a huge amount to offer in our society right now, and it's been completely ignored. Everyone goes, oh, is that acupuncture and herbs? I'm like, well, it is, but there's all this other stuff. And
but you're sort of, scratching the surface, just for acupuncture and herbs.
The idea of Heiyu was to just like absolutely like really get it down to an absolute like nth degree. And the reset ritual is exactly that. We use the tapper, the product, but you can use your hands to tap the body. And we use the rescue breath, which is what we did earlier, which is just a simple breath. And it's like a 1 breath meditation.
Can you tell our attendees how the rescue breath works?
Yes,
just because I know we all sort of benefited from it, hence why we're all like being calm for this webinar.
That's why we're so enlightened.
Oh yes,
brilliant. But it works. It works.
It does work.
So
it works.
It works.
But you know, there are many Chinese masters out there that I've been studying over the years to ensure. And the rescue breath is a distillation of an incredible Chinese technique called the inner smile. Okay, and what it is it's like, this is one of the reasons why the Mona Lisa is so famous, because she is doing the inner smile in that painting. That's why.
She's mastered breath work.
Yeah, she was. No. This stuff was in our culture. This stuff was in Shakespeare, it's in Chaucer. It's just we've sort of forgotten all about it. But anyway, back to the breath. What you do is you hold, first of all, you take your hands and you hold your lower tummy, okay? And don't pull it in, just relax. Okay, so I'll just show you on my screen there. There, we just hold it there. And what you do is, this is the belly brain. You have 2 brains, this brain and the belly brain. And when you hold your hands down there, it means your brain knows where to go. It can feel that's where it is, okay? So then all you do is you breathe in. And as you breathe out, you just imagine a smile. down where your hands are. Breathe in. And breathe out. Imagine a smile. Breathe in. Breathe out. Imagine a smile. And what you're doing with that, if anyone's doing that, just carry on whilst I keep talking. But that is literally the beginning of the meditation. And what you do in one breath is you rectify the stress response and you get yourself back into the relaxed state because you're deeply oxygenating the body. You're going down to the energetic center, which we call the dantian. In the West, you'd say it's the root of the vagus nerve. You're controlling the heart rate. You're strengthening the lungs, you're putting heightened levels of oxygen, which makes the body alkaline, and you're doing it in one breath. And if you repeat that at intervals during the course of the day, you're constantly rectifying this stress response. You reset the body. And you do that, and you're tapping, you're allowing the body to stay healthy. It's healthy. And what I say to people during the Qigong class each day is, notice how you feel doing that. That is a healthy feeling. This is a relaxed body. This is what we are designed to feel like all the time. If you were like this all day, you'd fall asleep, no problem. So if there is a symptom of a sleep dysfunction, then that is showing it that there is a basic problem going on in the body. And it's a very simple one to rectify, but you need to address what you're doing in the day in order to ensure what you're doing at night.
That's genius. I mean, sort of going back to Qigong, how is it different from sort of principles such as Tai Chi, for example?
Well, Qigong is a healing practice and always has been. And it was okay, first of all, Tai Chi was a derivation of Qigong. That's why I've kind of answered the two.
So they're sort of part of the same thing. Because I know I've done Tai Chi, but never Qigong. Yes.
Qigong was first, Tai Chi was a derivation of that, because obviously these things have evolved over thousands of years. And so Tai Chi then turned into more of a martial art. Qigong was created by the Taoist masters back in the day, and they would be sat there meditating all day to the point at which their bodies got so stiff they needed to move them, but they didn't want to come out of meditation. So they developed these exercises as a way to maintain meditative practices while stretching the body and strengthening the qi in order to become immortal, because that was what they were all about. So the amazing thing about these techniques is they were obsessed with immortality in those days, absolutely obsessed with it.
Yeah.
You know, they were looking and messed them. A lot of people died in the process of like thinking, oh, let's take mercury, you know, and then all these aristocrats died. And they also did this other thing where they cleansed the organs, where they'd have surgery using acupuncture to anesthetize the body. And they
Trump had an idea about that recently, which I thought was rather good, the Dettol thing. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they were thinking about this hundreds of years ago, and literally they'd clean all the organs and put them back in again because they thought it would create eternity. But obviously it didn't. Obviously they died in the process and decided not to do that after all. But that's what I love about Chinese medicine. You've got thousands of years of cock-ups, you know, where they basically I'm not going to do that. And then,
but it is our failures that
exactly, the stuff that sticks is the really good stuff. And this the thing is, what I've just done is delved into it and gone, my God, this stuff's amazing. And it really is. So techniques like the breathing techniques. And so Qigong basically is a healing art. And it heals and strengthens the body. Why? Because what it is qi is the life force of the body, and gong means practice. So it's life force practice. So what you're doing is you're doing a little bit of work every single day, like you're talking about your body debt, I think you were calling it, but it's the same thing. You're charging your body like a bank account every day, going, do this, do that. And the body's going, okay. And then what you've got to do is you've got to pay it back.
Pay your daily rent.
Pay your daily rent and then pay it back with some Qigong.
Because every single day, those people that have started my class in lockdown, which I didn't do on purpose, I just thought, oh, I'll just put some mascara on and just see if anyone wants to join me, you know, because I'm doing it anyway. And it's turned into this thing, which I never ever in a million years thought was going to happen, but lo and behold, it did. Because the results that came back from this kind of live experiment with people sort of 2 weeks later, good God, you know, all these people had little healing crises, and then everyone going, oh my God, my insomnia's gone, my weight's lost, I've lost 4 pounds, I've lost 4 kilos, I've lost.
Well, I think, isn't that the root of all Chinese medicine? It's more about you fix sort of an imbalance or a blockage in the body, and once you do that, actually all of the issues sort of go away, whether that's insomnia or whether it's anxiety or infertility. I think, you know, that there are so many ways that it can actually balance us as humans.
Treat the cause, not the symptom. Yeah,
exactly. It's getting to that root cause.
We can do both. I mean, I will always position myself in prevention, not cure, because if I start saying the cure word, then I'll be just discredited. So I don't bother with it. And by the way, we don't need to. Western medicine's so brilliant. You're just like, well, let them get on with that. But right now we've got, we are being asked to protect our NHS. We are being specifically asked to do so. So therefore, it's our duty to look after ourselves as best we can, and not bother doctors that have got way more important things to do than thinking about as to whether I've got, I don't know, some issue that I could fix myself.
Katie, were you going to try and show us, or attempt to show us, a bit of Qigong?
Yes.
Before we finish, this will be the last thing before we do some Q&As.
The thing that everyone has engaged with out of all of the things that I've been teaching is this laughter, okay? And Mantak Chia himself, who's a great Chinese, like demigod basically here on this earth, has stated that with all of the thousands of breathing exercises that Qigong can teach us, that laughter Qigong is definitively the most powerful and easiest and most fun to do. And so I incorporated it in my Mighty 10, which I do each morning. And it has just honestly, everyone goes nuts for it. So all you do, okay, now you've heard it here first. I'm going to lead. I've never done this with other people laughing. You're going to feel terrible.
Oh my God, this is so funny. This is why all attendees don't have cameras on. You're so lucky.
I'm going to style this out, okay? Right.
We'll just have to be me and Katie.
After Qigong is that I am going to start laughing, okay, and you are just going to laugh with me, and I promise you it's going to work, because laughter Qigong is incredible for the immune system. It makes you feel happy, it floods your body with endorphins, and it massively boosts your chi, okay? And all you have to do is start laughing. The thing that happens when you do it repeatedly every day is what happens if you do it every day. Everything then starts, because I now have noticed that I laugh so much, it has absolutely infected my entire family with happiness.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because if I can laugh at my phone on an Instagram live feed, then I suddenly find an episode of Friends suddenly becomes incredibly funny, because it's like...
And if we have more joy in our life, then we're going to be healthier with stronger immune systems.
It's really good for the immune system. So you just do it every morning. So ready? I'm going to make you laugh.
Okay. Oh God. Okay.
It's like infectious.
She has the most amazing laugh.
So you've got a good laugh.
Oh my God. Oh my goodness.
Can you just make yourself do that?
She just made herself laugh.
I want to do
That is
that.
absolutely genius. But I think it turns into real laughter after a while, doesn't it?
Honestly, I'm really good at it now, because I have to do it every day, and I'm
my stomach hurts from...
You can make yourself do that, because that's fascinating. Because your mood, the only thing we can control at the moment is our state in the morning, and we can change our state instantly through actions, through how we think, through what we do,
all through this laugh thing, just bursting into laughter like you just did.
I'm not a naturally like upbeat kind of person, I'm very English in that respect,
Oh, I feel like you certainly are, Katie, but you also do have the most amazing laugh. That is pure.
You could do laugh lessons.
No, and honestly, everything
because...
makes me laugh. But it's so good for your energy, because when you do it, and what's interesting is that people actually really find it quite hard to do. And so obviously I have to lead it, so I just do it anyway. So if you watch if you go on YouTube and see any of the live feeds, you'll see that, and it's all the emojis coming and everyone going, oh, I couldn't do this at first, and then suddenly they're all doing it, and that your dogs go mad, your neighbours think you're mad, your husband thinks you're bonkers, and yet they're all well, and yet they're all thriving, and yet
it is kind of extraordinary.
Yes, and it's the easiest thing, and I think it's such a wonderful thing to tell people to do. Because
I'm totally with you. I'm going to try and force myself to laugh all the time.
But also, it's simple. It's simple. It's free. It's free.
Exactly. And it gets you breathing properly as well.
Mantak Chia said it is the best breathing exercise you can do, and he's absolutely right. It is the best possible thing, and I think sometimes when you see sort of like really attractive women with some like not that great guy, and you think, why are you with him? And she goes, oh well, he just makes me laugh so much, the kind of guy, exactly. And she's like,
whatever, we all know he's
That is so funny. Well, thank you, Katie, for ending things on such a high. That was really brilliant. Really fun. But look, we've slightly overrun, so my apologies to everyone at home. But that very much brings us to the end of tonight's webinar. And it's definitely been a really thought-provoking yet very optimistic discussion with the three of you. I think, you know, what's wonderful and what you all have in common is your ability to really inspire some sort of positive thinking and optimism, but at the same time giving us a very realistic roadmap, I think, for the sort of weeks and months ahead, which I think we all need now. I think it's definitely probably speaking to everyone now. It's going to be some time until we even sort of glean back a little bit of what normal life looks like. But I think, yeah, all of the tips that you've given us, all of the skills that we've learned, the laughing, the tapping, the deep breathing, I think they will all come in really handy. So thank you, all of you, for being here. And I think we've got a couple of audience questions now. So let me just pull those up. We can get to those. Okay, so the first question, I think this is for you, Selena. It's all about skincare. Yeah. So you talked about the importance of an SPF 50. As I'm often on the verge of a breakout, I sometimes forego sunscreen as it tends to make things worse. Is there a product you can recommend that won't make my skin congested?
Well, that's the one I actually mentioned. So the HelioCare brand, they have a variety of different sunscreens, and an SPF 50 is the one that I prefer. It's the gel oil free, so they have a version within their actual range which is designed for an oilier skin, and any of my patients that suffer with acne or, you know, very congested skin or enlarged pores or anything like that, that's the one I usually advise, because it doesn't leave any residue. It's dry touch, it disappears really quickly, and you can't see it. So even if you wanted to just go bare skin and you just wanted SPF over the top, nobody would know, because a lot of other SPFs at that factor tend to have a bit of a white sort of cream like sheen to them, and actually you can tell that you've got one on the skin. But that's my favorite one. By all means, it has always been for a very long time. So that's the one I would recommend. It's still really important to make sure you are wearing SPF, because we can't sort of forego it purely because we're sort of, you know, indoors, or, you know, for any other reasons that are going on at the moment, because it's what's stopping us from getting photo damage on our skin, and that's what we need. And that one's a really, really lovely product. So I
don't want to leave lockdown with terrible pigmentation.
No.
Having not left the house, that would be so frustrating. One for Louise. I spent lockdown cooking meals for myself, my husband, and my 2 children. What are the family-friendly and healthy alternatives that will keep us all happy?
Wow, I salute you. First of all, don't cook for everybody. I think it's, look, it is hard because, you know, we've all got different tastes and needs and times of days that you like to eat. But you know, I can only talk about what works for me at the moment, and that's a bit of boundaries, a bit of discipline about meal times, and actually this is what we're having. I've batched it, we're all having it, and I'm going to customize it for everybody's needs. So, you know, take, I just can't think of anything now off the top of my head, but say you're making a dal curry, all right? Bad example, ignore the curry and spicy kids, but you may, you know, add extra spice for your husband who likes that. You might add extra protein and extra low glycemic index carbohydrate for your son that's athletic and got those needs. But start with something basic. Our core principle in terms of our food plan, which is only one aspect of the method, is making sure that within each meal you've got a bit of healthy fat, a dose of protein, not Atkins, some protein, a good source of protein, not necessarily a high source, a good source of protein, and making sure that you've got low glycemic carbohydrates. And
well, what are the low glycemic ones?
That would be your anything brown and unrefined generally.
Okay, so like whole wheat pasta and brown rice and quinoa and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from the school of thought that if I'm having pasta, I want proper spaghetti. I want it. It's just, but you know, if you like it, great. But if I'm having pasta, I want it. You know, I want it. I want the Italian job. Basically.
I agree. Proper, like fresh egg pasta.
And if you know, I say I'm not really part of the quinoa brigade, but you know, it's great in that it's foods like lentils and quinoa and things like that are a good plant-based proteins. They're a combination of carbohydrate and protein.
Right.
So they are a source of protein, but they're not necessarily protein. So it gives you a bit of sort of double bang for your buck, basically. So they can be really handy foods, pulses, quinoas, and any sort of pulses and lentils. And there are ways of doing it that aren't all sort of, you know, particularly hippie. Like there are cool ways of doing it.
Cool ways of doing
that your kids love. Yeah, absolutely.
Louise, can I ask you another question? Yeah. How do we access additional tips and recipes that you've mentioned? Well, is there a place that people can see recipes that you've done? Do you have a blog, or can you send us anything?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. So we've got, I mean, throughout our 3 books, we adapt all our recipes for our clients, be they our private clients having one-to-one coaching, either in Walton Street or Harrods, or be they on our interactive program and group. Our method is customized. Nothing's bespoke. When people tell you things are bespoke, it's an absolute lie. But they are customized based on very detailed information that the clients share with us. So whether or not they've got type 2 diabetes or they don't like tomatoes, all of that's fed into a system so that we can bespoke it as much as possible. This is for our clients who are on our interactive program, which we live stream. But still we tailor it throughout their coaching. But in terms of people out there that aren't sort of part of our family and I don't have access to our coaching, there is a huge amount of recipes in all of the 3 books. They've evolved.
I can vouch for them. They're amazing. I think I have all 3.
Thank you. The recipe book 2, the cookbook, is a good one for people to start with, I think. If food is your thing, you still get the synopsis of the method and why it matters.
And what's that one called? Sorry.
That is Louise Parker Method, the cookbook. This so looks staged and it's not.
And here's one I prepared earlier.
It is one I prepared.
I'm joking.
It's one I haven't prepared earlier. So all my books have just been reprinted. That's the first one. So that will give you, that's got recipes in, workouts, and it's got the principle.
Okay.
So it depends what level you want. People get confused. If you want the overall view, that's the best one. But bear in mind, it's 5 years out of date and we're always evolving. So the core principles are the same. There's nothing dangerous in here.
Amazing.
So, you know, but the cookbook, if food is your thing, do that.
Perfect.
They're all on.
Okay, I've got a quick question for Katie, which I think came up whilst we were doing the tapping. What is the tapper? This is your product, isn't it? The tapper that you use.
Here I have it here. Here it is. It's made of.
Oh, look, one you also prepared earlier.
Oh, well, I genuinely did prepare this earlier. It took years. So
this is the technical gadget, or it's not even a gadget, tool for tapping rather than using your fists.
Absolutely, because it means you can reach, say, the upper back, which is so useful in isolation, because that's the area that's like when you're doing fake tan, you can't quite get there on your own, you know. So you need to be able to get down at the back, and also it's very good for going down the spine. And also because you've got these bamboo reeds, it means it's giving you the exact vibration that you're looking for.
Oh, really nice. That sounds like it feels so therapeutic as well. So it must feel so nice.
It's such a great tool.
Looks multi-use as well. I reckon you had another job in a former life, Casey.
That was so funny.
That's why I'm smiling.
I have a question for Selena. The body tight treatment you mentioned, is it suitable for ankles, as this area has previously been an area I've been told was unsuitable for cool sculpting?
Well, so yes, so definitely we can't do cool sculpting on the ankles. There just isn't an applicator that's been developed.
And it's such a tricky area to try and grab hold of everything around there, isn't it?
There haven't. So I know that we can treat around the calf area with there's a smaller applicator that you can use, and you have to just be very careful because the lower leg has compartments within it from a surgical point of view, and you have to be really careful that you don't want to cause a condition called compartment syndrome, which can be really painful and very dangerous. But there is a very, very small applicator on the body tight system called AccuTight. Whether that could potentially be used around the ankle area, it's not something I've seen anyone do as yet, but it might be a treatment that they could develop a protocol for, because there is a really small applicator that can be used because it's used for sort of the under eye around here. But whether or not that could potentially be adapted for use around the ankles, I'm not 100% sure, but that's the only part of it that I think that could be safe.
Okay, perfect. And another body sculpting related question. I've got a slight overhang from a C-section scar on my stomach. Which treatment would be the most beneficial for treating this, cool sculpting or body tight?
Well, again, it just depends whether you are somebody that wants to go down the non-surgical route, or you aren't too sort of worried about something that's a minor surgical procedure. The overhang after sort of a C-section, it's one of my sort of little specialities that I do with cool sculpting, actually, because I see so many patients with it, and there is a really nice way to treat that actually with cool sculpting. It really depends on how big it is. If it's quite a large overhang, then potentially we might be looking more along the lines of body tight. But if it's one that's sort of a very, very typical little patch that you get, and there's a very tight scar there, then actually cool sculpting is usually really, really good for that.
And do you have to wait? Do you have to wait a certain length of time, sort of a number of years, or does it not really
following
matter?
the surgery? Actually, so technically, theoretically, you only need to wait 6 weeks, but I would never recommend that, because actually that's a little bit too soon. You might be breastfeeding and all that sort of stuff. I would advise waiting 6 months. Give it 6 months so that you've at least recovered from the surgery. You're feeling a bit more comfortable in yourself. It's also very, very safe to use cool sculpting over a scar, and actually very commonly we're able to do it in such a way that you can disguise the scar really, really well.
That's interesting.
So it depends. If it was, as I said, if it was a larger overhang, we would have to think about the slightly more invasive.
Does cool sculpting do anything to break down scar tissue?
It doesn't, no. But it's, so I've treated over a variety of different types of scars, and as long as you are treating for an appropriate indication, the scar is unaffected by the treatment. So it's not going to make the scar any worse. In fact, actually sometimes it can almost improve it slightly, as it does sometimes with cellulite. When we treat with cool sculpting on the legs, we often find that cellulite looks a lot better because of the way the fat has been damaged from the treatment.
Okay, super. This is a question that I think maybe all of you might have a response for. Hello, I wanted to ask about Chinese medicine and dental health, or indeed any of the experts here. Sorry, that was her asking any of the experts here. Ferrero Rocher aside, which sings to me, Louise.
God,
Sorry.
that was really brand damaging, wasn't it? I wish I said, Rococo chocolate.
I think Ferrero Rochers are so chic. They're so retro, they're so chic. Does anyone have any suggestions on sort of how to improve dental health? I don't know, Katie, are there any sort of methods in traditional Chinese medicine that improve dentistry?
There are actually, because it's connected to the large intestine, weirdly.
Wow.
I know, because the large intestine channel goes over the teeth like that. So often you find people, and the large intestine channel is connected to the lungs. So it's too long to go into why, but it is. And so basically you often find—
We'll take a word for it.
Just like, yeah, just trust me, right? Because otherwise, and you'll be like, oh my God, why did I ask that question? So often you find that what happens is people with naturally, say, weak lungs, people that catch cold easily, or they struggle to finish, often people struggle to finish sentences. They find it an effort to even speak, or they've got quite a pale pallor on their skin. Often that results in a large intestine deficiency as a result, which in turn creates a problem in the teeth. So the best way you can do is to strengthen up the lungs, and that's where I've got all those fact sheets on my website, which are free. So you just get the lung fact sheet and have a good look at it. Always do the qigong, always gua sha the face, and do meditation, because that meditation exercises we were doing takes you down into the large intestine. And then you mix it with the gua sha on the face itself, because when you're using the Beauty Restore, you can get right into this area.
And the gua sha is the sort of kidney stone shaped, not kidney stone shaped, kidney shaped stone.
Crystal,
Yes,
yeah.
there you go, exactly. It's crystal.
Because you're basically, what you're doing is as I said earlier, the absolute key to the body is the free flow of circulation. The minute there's a problem with circulation, there's a problem with your health. So by assisting the circulation into the area, you're working, because there's channels that are going all around here. And then you do the deeper techniques of Qigong and breath work to balance out the body. There's an imbalance in the lungs.
It looks kind of amazing. It also looks like you're sort of ironing out any sort of lines we might have on our faces. So it's like double bang for your buck.
That's why I love this tool so much, because it's just so simple, you know, and it works really well with other advice, you know, but, you know, Dr. Selena, you've been giving us, and, you know, just the most insanely brilliant level of knowledge about products. But it's so useful to have a little thing like this that you can just do for yourself in the shower in the morning when you can't get to your appointment. And you want to use it in conjunction with these incredible, like, cutting edge products that are now on the market. I think we're living in the most amazing age now for beauty, for women particularly, in terms of what's available to us. But, you know, don't ignore, you know, this at 6:30 in the morning in the shower with water before you go and whack ears. You can do this as well, because
doing my tapping in the shower, but also, sorry, Katie.
Does anyone else have any?
In terms of teeth, gut health, I actually just recently wrote one of my columns on it, and the clinical studies, the efficacy, the level of research, gut health, microbiome, just basically take a really good quality supplement. We suggest Octabac, so we do all the sort of guesswork for our clients and kind of.
So that's a probiotic.
Yeah, it is.
And the Octabac comes in the capsules, doesn't it, as well? You don't have to keep them in the fridge.
Yes, yeah, and we've got. I mean, we stock for our clients. There's one that is just really good, and, you know, absolutely excellent for everybody, for, you know, for simple terms. And then we've got various strains, because different strains suit different needs. So we've got one for immunity boosters, one for travel, one for after, you know, periods of extreme stress. But so much of our gut defines our overall holistic health, and ultimately it is our inner health that reflects our outer beauty. And I think what's great about today is actually ultimately it's all about quick, simple hacks that can help us, but actually they are evidence-based. They're not woohoo, they work. And actually that's what we all want now. People aren't stupid. No one wants to be lied to. We want stuff that's effective and that works and is doable, because if it isn't doable, it's a complete and utter waste of time.
Totally right. We say beauty is an exterior manifestation of interior health. You cannot look beautiful if you don't feel well. Yeah.
Oh, we often say that. I mean, we're known for weight loss, and, you know, and our people come to us because for weight loss, and, you know, we deliver that because that's what the client needs. But the reality is it comes with all these side effects, and just one of them is weight loss. But if you can fall in love with your lifestyle, that's the trick. Fall in love with your lifestyle, your routines, then you don't even have to try that hard.
On a side note, Louise,
the bits that we need fixing, Selena can, sorry.
I just have to ask you another question that's popped up. Where are your leggings from? Somebody's asked.
They are Alice and Olivia. I got them off the Outnet. This was, you know, when I still had a budget for clothing. Alice and Olivia from the Outnet.
They are fabulous.
Thank you.
Okay, super. What is the next one? One more question for Katie. Are there things that we can do at home or within the confines of lockdown to improve circulation? I feel like my body is hibernating and becoming sluggish. Is this normal?
Yeah, well, the tapper is the absolute obvious thing, because the tapper is such an easy product to use, and it immediately invigorates the circulation. So the other product that I love is the comb, which I use in the shower. This is really good for cellulite. And has won multiple awards for just that, because basically,
wow, so it's a comb for your body, not for your hair.
It's for your scalp and your body. But I use it circulation is really good because it's very invigorating. So you just with the water of the shower and you just go down like your wobbly bits like here, down your waist like here, and then down around the bum and up down the legs. It's absolutely brilliant.
And do you use quite a firm pressure, like as if you were body brushing, or is it supposed to be quite a gentle?
The thing is, they're handmade, so each artisan makes them in a slightly different way. So the thing is, when you get your comb, you just got to use your common sense. If it's sometimes you just need to start very, very lightly. Sometimes you need to press a bit harder. It slightly depends on your skin and which comb you've got. But basically, so lightly, it's really invigorating. It feels absolutely brilliant. It's fantastic for cellulite and very good for circulation. I do both those things. I do this in the shower and then I tap my body, and then I start the Qigong class. And you wonder,
I love that.
Because
who likes, I mean, I
So
recommend body brushing, obviously, but I don't like, who loves it? It hurts. So that sounds much nicer.
Body combing is like, whoa, it's lovely. It's really
okay.
I love body brushing, but I need to get onto body combing. Selena, another question for you. Is there anything patients can do to prep themselves for aesthetic treatments before they come in for a treatment in the clinics? I suppose there any like at-home prep, for sort of safety and...
Yeah, so I think we were sort of just writing our policies now. So we basically said to make it as streamlined as possible, just please don't come in any makeup. Make sure you don't have makeup on the skin. Try and just come completely with clean skin, just to make it a lot easier, because if we're, again, spending additional time trying to do that, it just means you're spending more time in contact with people when we're trying not to, overdo that at the moment.
It's not a bad education for patients anyway to know that they need to be going with clean skin to have whether it's injectables or whether it's a medical facial. We're not there to rely on somebody else to take it off for us.
Exactly. No, but I do spend half of my time doing that, actually. So it does really help if somebody can just make sure they come with clean skin. We will be sending out sort of pre-screening questionnaires to everybody now before all appointments, and that's going to be sort of a medical questionnaire, just checking if they've had any symptoms of coronavirus, anything like that. There's going to be a lot of specific stuff that we're going to have to check beforehand, just to make sure patients are going to be safe. And I don't know if in 7 weeks' time will they have the track and trace available. Will we know if people have had antibody tests? That might form part and parcel of it. We just don't know. We don't know where we're kind of going with that, so we're obviously still waiting for further guidance. But those are the sorts of things I think we're thinking ahead about now.
Yeah, no, you need to be, certainly. I think that's very smart. I don't know who this question is for, but maybe you all have answers. What is the best way to deal with post-trauma emotions that have surfaced during lockdown, apart from speaking with a counsellor? I guess not virtual consultations aren't for everyone with counsellors, particularly if maybe you've not got a counsellor already. It's probably quite difficult to find one at this time and sort of have that rapport. Do you guys have any tips on sort of dealing with anything that might be coming to the surface right now emotionally?
I was just going to say that a lot of therapists have switched to offering, video conferencing as a way. And actually, I think amongst their sort of professional bodies, they've all said that actually it's working really well as a tool.
I've heard this from people as well. People don't feel so intimidated almost because that you're no longer in the same room.
Yeah, you're not having to travel somewhere. You can do it out of the comfort of your home. And actually, you do sort of glean a lot of information from somebody, even if we're not necessarily right next to each other, but you can still, pick up on cues if somebody is feeling very low in mood or something like that. I think that is something that will become more and more, popular, because I think people are going to be fearful going into the coming months, because the disease has created such a worry and obviously so much devastation, and I think people are going to want to look at different ways to access healthcare, access appointments, because actually, I've been thinking about it, there isn't really any sensible reason for me to bring people into the clinic for a consultation now, unless I really feel it's really appropriate. So actually, I will probably continue doing a lot of my appointments this way, because it's just safer for the time being.
I've heard that from a few people, that they'll continue offering virtual consultations, or at least engaging virtually. I know, Louise, you've always done a bit of virtual, and Katie, I assume you'll continue your sort of Instagram lives and that sort of little virtual community as well. But I think it's lovely if everyone can be working in a more virtual way, just also to reach the people that maybe aren't even in the same town, in the same country. It means you can see so many more people and offer guidance to people far and wide.
It's so helpful. I mean, we've been coaching clients one-on-one for 5 years using technology, which has been amazing in that we've been able to help clients globally and, you know, in all sorts of countries. And I think, but there will always be clients that want that human touch as well, you know. But there's a lot we can learn from that. Our latest program, which has been a couple of years in R&D now, but it's interactive, it's online. But what can be missing from that, you know, the fact that it's a group and it's a community sort of gives us that comfort that we need as well at this time.
Yeah.
So, but in terms of therapy, I have had PTSD 9 months ago, actually, after an operation went wrong, and I have been given some tips and practices, and what I find helpful, and perhaps I had a bit of a sort of head front with it because CBT is something that we use in clinic, but something that people can do very easily is, and I can make some recommendations, is there are some really good, simple books and literature on cognitive behavioural therapy, and this is this idea of having a thought, feeling it, reframing it, not just in a positive way, but in a constructive way.
Yeah, I think constructive is absolutely what we all need to be doing. And actually that sounds a lot like sort of just being very present and not allowing yourself to get sort of, to fall down that rabbit hole with that sort of spiraling thought pattern.
Yeah.
And Katie, you must have a couple of suggestions, I'm sure, for sort of post-trauma that might be sort of coming to the surface at a time like now.
Absolutely. The Chinese have a really wonderful technique of this, and it's called emotional transcendence. And basically, or emotional alchemy is a probably easier way of describing it, where you alchemize the negative emotion that's more than what we call the human evil, because it's the lower level of the human which tortures us, and you alchemize it with the higher self. So for example, if you feel worried, you alchemize it with the virtuous path, or if you're feeling anger and frustration, you alchemize it with compassion and benevolence.
Do you mean you offset it with, so if you're feeling angry, you then try and feel compassion?
So this was the purpose of religion, because that was why, you know, people used to go to church like all the time, you know, several times a day, because life was hard and those human emotions are painful and damaging to our health. So if you transcend them to the higher virtue, you can kind of pull them upwards, and so you can treat the body with the spirit and the spirit with the body. So there's a chapter in my book about exactly that and how to do it. And you can do it via the breath, and you can do it with healing sounds. And you can do it with just knowing that it's even a possibility. But it is a practice, it's spiritual practice, but it is something that you can do, and it is actually really rewarding. And the harder the challenge, the better the reward.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think that was a really interesting question.
It's
interesting to hear your answers on that.
It's cognitive flexibility and healing, I guess, like CBT. It's like, feel it, it's real, and now reframe it. Yeah. Have you really tried a million things? Is everything really going to end? No, just feel it. It feels real. Now what you're going to do next step. And it's so quick. It's so powerful.
And I think what's so interesting about all these techniques we're talking about is, you know, they're really applicable to life in lockdown. I'm sure they're going to help us get through however many sort of weeks, maybe months that this situation might turn into, but they're also so translatable to what comes afterwards, and you know what is going to sort of be around the corner when we do sort of get back to normal life. You know, even years down the line, these are still very simple, easy techniques that we can sort of all fall back on time after time. So that has taken us to the end of the Q&A, which is great. But before we finish, and thank you to everyone who stayed with us, because I know that we said it would finish at 7:30. It's slightly later than that. But a very big thank you to our Beauty Triangle panelists. You've all been absolutely brilliant, really inspiring, and I've learned an enormous amount from you. So I am sure all of our sort of attendees have as well. So Thank you to all of you.
Thank you, Francesca.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not at all. And thank you finally to our audience. It's been so fantastic having you here with us, and I hope you found tonight useful. We would absolutely love to see you again at more of our webinars and talks and events. So if you've not already registered your details, then please just go onto our website, www.thebeautytriangle.com, and sign up, and we will keep you posted on everything. But in the meantime, thank you very much.